The Heavenly Demon. Can't Live a Normal Life. By Sanchin. Chapter 226. Valhalla Kingdom. Part 1. Around that time, a rumor was spreading about Roman Dmitri all over the continent. Did you hear the rumor? What rumor? The Valhalla Empire is holding a festival to honor the souls of warriors again this year, and they chose Roman Dmitri as the opponent for Barbarossa, the 12 swords of the continent. It means that the Valhalla Empire acknowledged Roman Dmitri's existence. If Barbarossa is defeated, the continent's first highest ranker, excluding the empire, will be born. At first, there was news informing people of what had happened. Word spread quickly among the people that Roman Dmitri was dealing with Barbarossa, but at some point, the contents of the rumor changed a little. Despite getting the invitation, Roman Dmitri hadn't responded yet, and the slight delay fueled questions about Roman Dmitri. He must be scared. He must be. He is a completely different swordsman from what Roman Dmitri has dealt with so far. Even though he defeated continental rankers like Butler, Count Nicholas, and Gustavo, they were definitely lower rankers. In fact, even if they attacked at the same time, Barbarossa would not be defeated. It is clear that Roman Dmitri is talented, but dealing with that man is impossible. As expected, people talk about Roman Dmitri as if he is the best talent on the continent, but the continent is full of monsters worse than him. Roman Dmitri is just a frog in a well. The people expressed their disappointment. Roman Dmitri, the reason he was immediately recognized by the people was because he had never avoided fighting. In the fight that started with Homer and so on, Roman Dmitri was the underdog every time, but contrary to the expectations of the people, he proved himself by defeating the opponents. However, this time, he didn't move to fight. He understood the opponent, but they couldn't help but feel disappointed with his different attitude from the past. The rumors escalated, with words mocking Roman Dmitri. Even though there was still quite a bit of time left before the festival, people were thinking that Roman Dmitri had escaped. And such rumors soon reached Roman Dmitri. Valhalla is blatantly making their move. The intention of the rumors was clear. These rumors didn't escalate normally, but it was Valhalla that was leading this situation in this manner. If Roman Dmitri agreed to the fight, they would inform the people that Roman Dmitri would fall from Barbarossa, and they would raise the status of their empire using a revenge story. Conversely, if he refused, rumors would spread, tarnishing his reputation. People would ridicule Roman Dmitri's choice of avoiding the fight, as the rumors say, and it would only be a matter of time before people would consider him a coward. Valhalla had its methods. Even though the fight between Roman Dmitri and Barbarossa made no sense, they deliberately did that and laid a plan that Roman Dmitri would have a hard time refusing. The situation, Roman Dmitri didn't like Valhalla's intentions. Did they create the situation? Did they do so by spreading rumors? No. From the start, Roman was going to accept the invitation, but their confidence in Barbassa's victory was annoying him. That evening, Kevin went to see Roman Dmitri. "My lord, can you tell me why I am excluded from the party going to Valhalla?" During the trip to Valhalla, soldiers, including Chris, were included. The rest would stay in Dmitri, but the problem was that Kevin was in the Dmitri group. Kevin, as usual, didn't speak against Roman. He wouldn't even hesitate if Roman asked him to jump into the fire now, but he felt a little confused this time. It was like he was excluded from the people he could trust. Going to Valhalla was full of risk, but despite knowing that, Roman didn't want to take him. The special training in preparation for Valhalla, Kevin stubbornly went through it. He endured it all to help Roman Dmitri, so being excluded from the party wasn't something he had expected. He could accept it if Roman said he couldn't trust Kevin's skills. It was true that Chris was stronger, and he even felt angry about it, but he wasn't going to fail his lord. However, he just wanted to know the reason. At Kevin's question, Roman Dmitri said, "This trip to Valhalla will be a dangerous one. Kronos and Valhalla. For those seeking to take their revenge on me, this public departure to Valhalla is a golden chance to take my life. All of them will definitely move. I know they will try to hurt me in one way or another, but I have no choice but to accept the plan that Valhalla has set for me. It wasn't a compelling reason. His reputation didn't matter, and Roman was already willing to go to Valhalla right from the start. In the future war, we will have to win impossible fights. We did well until now, but dealing with empires like Kronos is a different thing. Then, how would the soldiers react to meeting the 12 swords on the battlefield? The value of the name and title they hold will shrink their morale, and fear will spread. Therefore, only one thing is needed. To show them that the 12 swords aren't absolute and make them believe that even the kingdom's alliance, including Dmitri, can defeat them, I decided this is necessary. Barbossa would be the stepping stone for that. It wouldn't simply end with leaping to a higher rank by defeating someone that strong, but it would serve as a reason to boost the morale of the soldiers in the future war. A war couldn't be won alone. Even if Roman Dmitri was 1 in 100, his win would be a win for all those who followed him. And now that he was leaving for Valhalla, Roman Dmitri had an obvious reason for leaving Kevin behind. The risks of this schedule are not limited to me. The fact that I will be exposed to danger from enemies after leaving Dmitri can also be interpreted as Dmitri being in danger without me. That is why I need someone I can trust to remain here. Kevin, I have decided that you are the right person for that. If, by any chance, the enemies come up with some plan, the person who will produce the best results on the battlefield without me is you, Kevin. Telling him that he trusted him was enough, the belief that he, and not Chris, was the one who would produce the best results. His discontent quickly melted away, and Kevin, who looked sad, was now clenching his fist with a determined expression. Thank you for trusting me. I will do my best to protect Dmitri. His face was bright. Kevin was a very simple human being. A few days after that, Roman Dmitri headed for Valhalla with his troops. Even with the warp gate, they couldn't directly go to the capital, so the first place they arrived was a city called Paulo, which was near the border. There was no problem getting in and out because there was an invitation. But from the moment they entered Paulo, Roman Dmitri and his party felt that Valhalla was different from other nations. We will conduct a body search for a moment. Paulo's guards skimmed through the invitation and checked all over their bodies, to the extent that it seemed a bit excessive. Usually, people who came in and out from the front could pass through in just 3 minutes. However, it took more than 30 minutes for them to check their luggage. Of course, during the search, nothing was found. Their minimum armament was acceptable, so the guards opened the way with disapproving faces. And do not make a fuss inside since Paulo isn't a city that welcomes outsiders. They spat out words like that in the end. Paulo was just like the guards had said. Inside, there were a lot of people with Valhalla's unique bronze skin, but when they looked at Roman Dmitri and his party, there was distaste in their eyes. Even the merchants didn't talk to them, and those walking on the sides turned their faces away. If they were warriors, their reactions would be different. Rather than keeping a distance, clashing shoulders and arguing were what Valhalla was known for. As rumored, it was Chris. Before leaving for Valhalla, he learned more about the nation he would get to experience in the future. The Valhalla Empire was a fairly closed nation, and unlike Kronos, which grew by accepting other people, Valhalla formed the basis of the nation by being closed off. Just as the lineage of Valhalla was once maintained through incestuous marriages, they rejected people from other races that were different from Valhalla. And they soon turned into an empire. Some of them had risen in status, but the essence of the empire didn't change. The race that is said to be the most difficult opponent on the continent is Valhalla. If one isn't from Valhalla, it is a world where hostility will be justified, so outsiders aren't welcomed there. There was a saying in the world. If it hadn't been for Valhalla's closed culture, they might have surpassed the Kronos Empire. While retaining some of their closed cultures, Valhalla had achieved a mighty power comparable to Kronos. The problem was that, even knowing that fact, Valhalla didn't send anyone to guide their guests. An inn in Paulo. Roman Dmitri made his party unpack in a place that had a shabby look. The other inns didn't take in outsiders. So after walking in vain, they were finally able to find a place to rest after saying that they would pay more. And at the inn's diner, Roman Dmitri went down and drank a cup of tea, which didn't smell that good. Apart from inviting us, it must mean that Valhalla just decided not to acknowledge my existence. Valhalla was unique. They had a culture that did not acknowledge others unless they had experienced them firsthand. Valhalla didn't intentionally send anyone. They hoped that Roman Dmitri would prove his existence on his own and arrive in the capital, where the festival was happening. It was interesting. People's cold stares and disdainful looks were the experiences of all the outsiders who entered the empire. It was then. The taste of alcohol. Bang! From a table away, a drunken man, who was still drinking, looked at Roman Dmitri with a flushed face. His companions were also clearly dissatisfied. From the moment they first entered the inn, they kept watching Roman Dmitri. I don't know where you guys are from, but if you are an outsider, go up and sleep quietly. Do not do arrogant things, and try to be with the people of Valhalla when they eat and drink. I get angry at the sight of you people. As if you had no hardships to go through in life, that fucking white skin. The drunk people giggled. He messed around in front of Roman Dmitri. There were soldiers in Chris too, but they didn't seem to care about them. Yeah. Didn't you hear? They looked at them. Seeing them calmly drinking tea made the drunk people angrier. This bastard continues to ignore people. I am telling you to leave. If you keep sitting on your ass here, I will pull you by the hair and send you upstairs. Is that fine? In Valhalla, it was the situation they wanted. Racism was commonly experienced by people from other nations. In response to Valhalla's intentions to examine their reaction, Roman Dmitri put down his teacup. Chris. Yes. From now on, as planned, let the people know that we have arrived in Valhalla. What bullshit is that? A drunk man asked, and at that moment. Weak. Chris grabbed the drunk man by his back, and then. Bok. As if to show off to everyone, he slammed his face right into the table. Chapter 227. Valhalla Kingdom. Part 2. Valhalla had a saying. Even the pot-bellied man passing on the street must have once been a warrior who drank blood on the battlefield, and this drunkard was like that. His face was slammed into the table with his nose crushed and bleeding, but the drunkard raised his head. His face was stained with blood. Even though it wouldn't be strange for most people to fall down and groan in pain, the drunkard spat blood with a distorted face. Spit. This bastard hit my head first? There was no need for words. The drunk man rushed and tried to knock Chris down, but Chris dodged with just a step and punched him in the abdomen. Quack. Quack. His eyes went wide. The pain must probably be rising from within him, but the man grunted through his teeth and swung his fist at Chris. He definitely had a toughness and determination that exceeded that of ordinary people. He showed his determination to defeat Chris, but what awaited him was just merciless hands. Pack. With a hit to the side, he slapped his cheek. He kicked the stumbling drunk right in the stomach, and he looked unsightly as he fell down. You bastard. Attack. In an instant, everything turned into a mess. The drunken party, which had been watching it while giggling until now, jumped up from their places, realizing the situation was turning serious. There were 3 people, and it seemed like each of them was familiar with street fights. The way they swung their fists was quite strong, but with one punch, their world was shaken. Whack. Thud. It was one-sided. The 3 men fell down before they could do anything, and Chris kicked them in the face as they tried to get up. Blood splashed. As they lost their consciousness, they couldn't move or rush at Chris anymore. Valhalla, there was a way for them to live here. They would sort out a situation through a duel when deciding between right and wrong, but the way they decided victory and defeat was different from that of other nations. There were 3 ways. It was either being dead or becoming incapable of fighting. And if that didn't happen, then the last way would be for them to admit surrender and end the confrontation. Just bleeding and falling didn't decide things. The people of Valhalla hated to die shouting surrender, so the drunk could only end it by being unconscious. It was a pitiful situation. The inn, which had a casual atmosphere until now, had turned into a mess, with people bleeding on the ground and tables broken. Yet the reaction of the owner was calm. Seeing him accepted as if it were normal, Roman Dmitri got up and placed a gold coin on the table. "I will pay for this mess in gold coins." "And where is the busiest place in Paulo?" The owner had a bright expression. "Oh my, thank you. I will guide you to the busiest street in Paulo." Even the people of Valhalla were all just humans. Under the guidance of the owner, Roman Dmitri and his men arrived at the square full of people. This is Paulo Square. It is at the center of the city, and it is a place where many come and go since this is the center. Just in case something happens, I will warn you in advance that you shouldn't make a mess here. I am a person who works for outsiders, so I can ignore most things, but there are always people who act extremely and don't care about what the people here did to tackle them. It was a sincere warning. Covering his face with cloth, the owner hurried out of the square, fearing that others might see him. Roman Dmitri looked around. The people of Valhalla, they had a peaceful atmosphere. Unlike other nations, they got along well with each other and solicited customers, while the merchants screamed to sell their products. The problem was that the people in other nations weren't used to that. The merchants kept their mouths silent when people from other nations would get close, and some even covered their noses and frowned. Honestly, Paulo wasn't such a big city. Still, since it was a city close to the border, they came into contact with outsiders more than other cities in Valhalla, but during the festival time, the discrimination was known to be at its peak. The festival honoring the souls of warriors was a privilege only for the people of Valhalla. However, there were cases where people who showed interest in the event would come to Valhalla to experience their festival, and their behavior didn't seem so nice to the people of Valhalla. They were not warriors. Only those who shed blood on the battlefield deserved to enjoy the festival, and outsiders do not get to enjoy it. It was unacceptable for the people of Valhalla. They didn't want other nations to consume the culture of Valhalla, so it was dangerous to enter Valhalla during the festival time. Roman walked among them. As people stepped away, each of them would whisper to the party and show how they disliked Roman Dmitri. It was only a matter of seconds before racism turned into violence. The moment even one of those with angry eyes stepped forward, they might resort to violence. It was a fun nation. Despite being called an empire, it was a nation that hadn't yet possessed the dignity of an empire. If Kronos couldn't control their strong greed, then Valhalla didn't abandon their savagery. The chaos of the Salamander continent is not a coincidence. Kronos and Valhalla. Since the two major mountain ranges that govern the continent are not fair in their growth, the continent is bound to suffer from violence from time to time. Even though people say Kronos is to blame, Valhalla's actions are to blame too. Halt. They stopped walking. This trip to Valhalla, it was the starting point of a new time. Before the war started in earnest, Roman Dmitri made his presence known here. Whisper. The people's eyes were focused on the middle of the square. To the gazes of those who showed suspicion towards the people from other nations, Roman Dmitri spoke to them all. I am Roman Dmitri, the heir to the Dmitri Duchy. If there are people who want to confront me, come forward. The atmosphere changed in an instant. At first, it was simply visible discrimination, yet now the people have shown their hostility towards him. Opponent, Roman Dmitri. And the rumor was that he was an Aura swordsman. Usually, people would get scared, but Valhalla was a different place. How dare you mess around in Valhalla? I will deal with you. It was a man with a strong physique. His huge body was very similar to that of a mountain, and his scarred face proved that he wasn't an ordinary person. Then the people surrounded the man and Roman. The stage for the confrontation had been set before anyone knew it, and even though there was no signal to start, the man rushed at him. Rumble. Aura flared, and it looked like the man was an Aura swordsman. His strength was not that comparable to Roman Dmitri, but it looked as if he would devour his opponent. Wound. He wielded a weapon that was like a huge axe, and as he moved, it looked like he could cut Roman down, but Roman just sidestepped. The sound of the wind being cut was scary to hear. From the start, the man stepped forward as if to end the fight in an instant, and he pushed fiercely, ignoring his defense and only aiming for the vitals of his opponent. It definitely looked like he was looking down on his opponent. Even though Roman Dmitri had the advantage, the man seemed to hold a strong power. However, he picked the wrong opponent. Roman Dmitri simply walked to avoid the attack, and he hit his cheek, making him stagger. Chuck. His head jerked back. Blood gushed from the man's face, and drops of blood fell to the ground. It was quite embarrassing. He was slapped on the cheek even though he swung his weapon, and this made the man grit his teeth in anger. In Valhalla, disgrace was worse than death. The man's muscles swelled up as if they were going to burst at any moment, but the weapon he wielded never hit the target. And as earlier, Chuck. His cheek was slapped. At first, he thought it wasn't an intentional attack, but this time, in a situation where his cheek was slapped again, he knew Roman Dmitri was looking down on him. "You jerk." His anger exploded, but it was to be expected. It was an act of looking down. In Valhalla, it was the law to treat warriors equally, but this man was mocking him like a child. His face was messed up. The man charged forward while wielding the axe without caring that he would be slapped again, but there was a limit to the movements that he could make. Slap. His head turned as he was still wielding the axe. Slap. Again. As he moved forward each time, he tried to attack Roman, but slap. His legs staggered. The man was losing his mind. The shock blurred his vision, and his fiercely burning will as a warrior was being trampled on in front of everyone. But strangely, the man wasn't losing consciousness. Obviously, the shock of being slapped strongly was too much, but no matter how many times the man was hit, he didn't lose consciousness. Slap. 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 In the end, the man was on his knees. He was also a human. Without being able to attack, he kept being hit in the face, and the man had to get out of the situation, so I surrender. Then Roman Dmitri lowered the hand he was about to use to slap him again. Ag. I'd rather you die. You bastard who lacks pride. Do not insult Valhalla. People booed the man. The three options. Among them, the fact that he chose to surrender made them change from cheering to shaming him. And as a man, it was embarrassing. However, only the person who was hit knows. The mind-bending shock was so unfamiliar that he had never experienced it on the battlefield. Get lost. I will show the will of Valhalla. He was a different man. Unlike the previous man, he was a man with a lean body, but the scar on his face showed just how stubborn the guy was. He knew he couldn't win against Roman Dmitri. The Aura swordsman who defeated Gustavo wasn't someone a normal warrior could get close to. However, surrendering was another matter. Even if he gets defeated, he intends to lose with honor. And such thoughts made him regain consciousness as he got slapped on the cheek. Slap. As his dagger attack was dodged, Roman slapped his cheek. As his head turned, the man briefly saw heaven. This is mad. It was a stinging pain that made him lose his vision. He staggered and tried to shout his surrender without realizing it, but he managed to stay silent, remembering how he had booed the guy before. And he regretted it later. He seemed to understand why the man before him shouted surrender, but he didn't want to show a humiliating side. This is what I have decided. He gave up defending and rushed forward. Rather, he decided to get hit properly and faint. Then it would at least be an honorable defeat. However, slap. Slap, slap. No matter how much he got hit, he wasn't fainting. Roman Dmitri slapped him again and let mana flow into the man's cheek for him to realize how painful it was, but at the same time, he wouldn't lose consciousness from the shock. It was quite a flustering situation to be in. Thinking that the impact on his cheek would last until he shouted surrender, the man finally decided. There is no other way. Slap. His head turned. With his legs staggering, the man collapsed, and then it looked like he fainted from the shock. He closed his eyes tightly. For the man who passed out after fighting to the end, even if he were defeated, people would applaud. Above the darkness, he could hear Roman's voice. Get up. You haven't fainted yet. Clench. Quack. As his feet pressed against his vital points, the man got up, screaming. At the thought of his intentions being revealed, the guy's face turned red in shame. He only knew it then. This bastard was he. Roman Dmitri. From the start, he intended to trample on the pride of Valhalla. Chapter 228. Valhalla Kingdom. Part 3. At that time, Baron Paulo, who was handling business in his castle, got a sudden report from his subordinates. Lord, we have a problem at hand. Right now, in Paulo Square, Roman Dmitri is said to be fighting against the people of Valhalla. The problem is that no warrior can stand up to him, and they are all shouting surrender. What are you talking about? Thud. Baron Paulo jumped up from his seat at the sudden report. It was something that made no sense from start to finish. It was absurd that Roman Dmitri, who was just an outsider, was fighting, and the Valhalla warriors were shouting defeat, unable to stand. It was an act that Valhalla would never accept. Especially during the festival time, there were a lot of eyes from outsiders, and what would they think of Valhalla? The subordinate explained the situation. As Roman Dmitri was said to have used violence to induce surrender, Baron Paulo couldn't calm his anger. Roman Dmitri. In the end, he is causing trouble. His trip to Valhalla, he had heard the information from his superior. Rumors had it that Roman Dmitri had unbelievable strength and that his presence couldn't be rivaled. While living in Dmitri, he raised his name's value by intervening in the war with the Barco family and later turned the world upside down with unconventional moves such as the Southern Front and the public ranking battles. In addition, rumors recently circulated that he got involved with the changes in the Redford Kingdom. It was said that the presence of an awl in a pocket could not be hidden, even if one wanted to hide it, but Roman Dmitri didn't hide it at all. Actually, Valhalla's leaders had no confidence that Roman Dmitri would accept the invitation. Even though dealing with Barbossa meant risking his life, Roman Dmitri still came to Valhalla. And then, the leaders conveyed these words. Roman Dmitri is a scapegoat that will increase the reputation of the Valhalla Empire. Until he gets on the stage that has been laid out, show him what Valhalla is like. That it is different from the inside, unlike a well-liked Dmitri. If he ends up going through all the hardships and reaches the capital, he'll be down even before the fight. For that reason, he didn't even send a guide. After suffering from the people of Valhalla's discrimination, the plan was to send someone when Roman reached the capital and then make it look like Valhalla did its part. But now things were a mess. If Roman made his presence known like this, then the situation wouldn't be good for them. Baron Paulo said. Call the others. I will show what Valhalla is to Roman Dmitri myself. I understand. Baron Paulo left his office with an angry face. Quack. Ugh. The people were groaning, and there were a dozen of them already. Those who courageously agreed to deal with Roman Dmitri were humiliated to the point that they were ashamed to laugh at the previous ones. The violence continued without them losing consciousness. The spirit of Valhalla, which everyone thought was steel, began to melt away. Even so, the challenges continued. When surrender flowed from the mouths of his opponents, Baron Paulo appeared with his troops. What is this? As soon as he arrived, he shouted, and the place turned quiet. Baron Paulo's attention was drawn more to the shocked expressions around him than to the disfigured faces. He felt that the pride of Valhalla he believed in had been crushed. He believed that the people of Valhalla would never shout surrender, but the sight in front of him was too much. Baron Paulo pressed on and asked. Roman Dmitri. You are an outsider and a guest in Valhalla. So why are you behaving like this? If you cannot provide me with a good reason, you will leave me with no choice but to punish you for this. For a good reason. I thought Valhalla wanted this situation. Roman Dmitri said as he looked at the Baron with a face that said he wasn't bothered even after fighting a dozen warriors. I am an invited guest to fight against Barbossa. In the process of entering Paulo, we revealed this fact, and we even asked the guards to guide us to the capital, but they didn't take any action and were acting too hostile toward us. And once we entered, the racism continued. No other nation treats its guests like this. But someone came up to me and said that Valhalla is a world ruled by power. So I taught those who looked at me in a hostile manner, who is above and who is below. What? Baron Paulo was shocked. It was more than he expected. Roman Dmitri was more aggressive than the people of Valhalla. He didn't think that if he didn't treat Roman appropriately, he would make a show of force in Valhalla style. Roman's words, he partly understood them. Actually, no matter how foreign he was, the person they invited directly had to be treated right, but Roman Dmitri was a target for revenge, so he wasn't cared for. And in the series of circumstances, there was nothing to hold Roman Dmitri accountable for. Even though he defeated the people of Valhalla, confrontations were a very common occurrence in Valhalla in the first place. But the problem was that Roman Dmitri was leading this, and the people of Valhalla were defeated in a humiliating manner. If the situation ends as it is obvious that I will be reprimanded by the leaders. Even if I have to use force, it is necessary to restrict Roman Dmitri from going wild in Valhalla. Even so, this cannot be overlooked. In Valhalla, there is no way a loser should be trampled like this. Fights should pursue the meaning behind them, and courtesy towards the other party should be present. We will conduct an investigation according to the process. If it turns out that you are innocent in the process, I will guide you to the capital. It was a debatable answer. In the situation where Baron Paulo was forced to act, Roman smiled. What if I refuse? You have no right to say no. This is the land of Valhalla. The land of Valhalla. Then I will handle this matter according to the laws of Valhalla. In Valhalla, I heard that when the responsibilities that both sides should take are ambiguous, the situation is settled through a dual trial. If you wish to take me in for an investigation, tie my hands and lead me there. If Baron Paulo wishes, then you can bring in all your troops to take me. It was an obvious provocation, and this made the Baron's expression turn cold. Roman Dmitri's remarks crossed the line, but the situation was resolved by force, which was what he wanted. He took a step back, and he shouted like thunder, "Soldiers! Listen! Bind Roman Dmitri right now." A dual trial had no rules. As the situation was different from what was expected, Baron Paulo ordered many soldiers to attack. It was a one-on-one fight, and the soldiers rushed in. Despite their appearance of raising their weapons and revealing their killing intent, the soldiers who were lined up behind Roman Dmitri didn't move. Attack! Whack! The soldiers moved while stabbing their spears. Roman Dmitri took a step and evaded all of the attacks, and like in the previous fight, he didn't use any weapons. His sword was hanging from his waist. Seeing that, the soldiers showed their anger and swung their weapons more fiercely, but every time their attack failed, a powerful shock hit them. Slap! His strength was able to push the body of the soldier. With one slap, the soldier's eyes rolled, and he fell to his knees. From the start, Roman Dmitri wasn't using any weapons. He intended to prove how overwhelming the difference between himself and his opponents was with just his hands and legs. But, Mr. Roman Dmitri, you better not take this lightly. Baron Paulo smiled. In Roman Dmitri's attacks, one of the soldiers who was slapped didn't fall. It had the force of hitting something like steel. The face of the soldier changed, and his face contorted. The body of the soldier, he was a savage. As the change spread through his body, all the hairs on the soldier's body stood, and he looked somewhere between a beast and a human. Quack! The savage ran. He scratched Roman Dmitri with his sharp nails, and the other soldiers also changed their attack methods. All of them were acting like wild men. There were a lot of changes. Someone looked like a wolf, some like a bear, and another like a deer. All of them looked like beasts. Beast men, they were the ethnic minority found in the southern jungles. From the time they were born, they grew up drinking animal milk and were reborn as true savages through a ritual to accept the appearance of the most friendly beast. Even in Valhalla, they were known to have the highest combat capabilities. They only took the form of normal soldiers, but the savage troops were the elite of Valhalla. As they attacked, the people clenched their fists. If they were beasts, they thought that they could defeat Roman Dmitri, who didn't care about using his weapons. Right. It was an illusion. The moment when a savage in the shape of a bear disregarded his defense and attacked. Crush. A fierce fist hit his face, and the eyes of the beast man felt lost. There were some things people misunderstood. The king of all animals. The way to represent Baek Jung-hyuk, the heavenly demon, could be described as such. Baek Jung-hyuk conquered Murim with a single sword and was recognized as the best man in the world who could represent both Murim in name and reality. But what was the next best weapon he could use after the sword? People mentioned that he could use various weapons with perfection, but in fact, except for the sword, every other weapon felt odd, and he was more familiar with his hands and feet. At the bottom of his life, in order to survive the fight for survival, he had to use his hands and feet, as well as everything that he could use as a weapon around him. And the process made Baek Jung-hyuk reach his peak. In the wilder environment, Baek Jung-hyuk destroyed the beast men with his hands and feet. The existence of the savages, he knew about them. The aura of mana exploded inside them, but Roman Dmitri didn't care. Crush. Quack. The beast's face was crushed. The beast's hard skull cracked, and he stumbled back as he fell. It only took an instant for the shock to spread. The beast in the form of a bear was famous for being durable among all beast men, but collapsing with one punch wasn't what everyone expected. Grrrr. Quack. All at once. Growling attack. As he had expected, the beasts rushed at him. Seeing them attack from both sides, Roman Dmitri kicked and smashed their faces, and a bird-faced savage with wings was slammed to the ground. This time, their solid durability was of no use. The beasts couldn't hold back their screams at the pain that pierced them deep into their bones. In the one-on-one fight, Roman Dmitri was supposed to be at a disadvantage. If he didn't use weapons, it was right for him to lose against these beasts, whose entire bodies seemed like weapons. But what was the situation? While Baron Paulo's mouth was wide open, the situation was quickly sorted out. Quack. Quack. His face jerked. Seeing the beast lowering his head, the last one in the form of a buffalo fell, and he was shocked. Roman Dmitri approached him. Say you surrender. Then this will end quickly. Slap. His cheek moved. The beast didn't even think about resisting. The beast, who was born with the nature of a beast, was overwhelmed at the sight of a predator in front of him. As he trembled under the hand of Roman Dmitri, Roman continued to slap the beast man. Slap. 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 In Murim, there was this martial art called the Golden Enhanced Palm. Even those with bodies like steel begged for their lives on their knees at the agony of the palm that pierced through their bodies. It was violence that could distort even steel, and Roman Dmitri didn't have to add further words. Without saying anything, he only focused on slapping the beast. Slap. Blood splashed. Slap. His teeth fell out. Slap. His beastly look was now pitiful. It was totally overwhelming. The moment he accepted the fact that Roman was at the top of the predator list, the beast man opened his mouth and said, Please spare me. I was wrong. That was all. Tap. He put down his hand that defeated the beast, and Roman Dmitri looked at Baron Paulo. What do you plan to do now? At those words, Baron Paulo unknowingly took a step back. Chapter 229. Valhalla Kingdom. Part 4. At that moment, Baron Paulo realized that he had stepped back, and his face turned red in shame. He was also a man who lived as a warrior until he took the position of lord, so he couldn't accept the fact that he was simply overwhelmed by force and resigned. But even if Valhalla was a closed and racist nation, their attitude of accepting defeat in a battle wasn't different. I accept defeat. As promised, I will put other priorities aside and guide you directly to the capital. He had to hold back his anger. The order of his superior was out of the question. They had a duel with conditions, and if they lost, doing their part was the right outcome. Baron Paulo knew that. Then the normal soldiers came forward to take away the beast men, who couldn't come to their senses. To defeat the beast men this mercilessly. Roman Dmitri, he might be more than what we know. In the upcoming fight, everyone was confident about Barbassa's victory. No matter how famous Roman Dmitri had become recently, Barbassa had been on the lips of people on the continent for 10 years. So they didn't expect that Roman Dmitri would agree. Valhalla revealed their intentions to get their revenge openly, yet Roman Dmitri didn't back down. A being with a tendency like Valhalla, it was odd. Being from a small nation, he was born with an odd disposition. Baron Paulo said, "First, we will guide all of you to a new accommodation. While you are comfortably resting there, we will figure out the schedule for the warp gate that connects directly to the capital and send you on your way as soon as possible. And I apologize for the mistake before. As Mr. Roman Dmitri said, Valhalla is a racist nation. However, if you knew about Valhalla's past, I think you would understand us. A long time ago, during the days when Valhalla was called the Savages of the South, there was a time when other people on the continent invaded Valhalla's territories without rights and attacked them to get the resources of the southern jungle. In reality, the fact that Valhalla was equipped with power was revealed, and the situation changed. Still, the memories of the pain accumulated in the memories of their ancestors left them with antipathy toward other nations. As of now, even though the Valhalla imperial family is seeking drastic changes by accepting outsiders with talent, not everyone has agreed to it. What did this national power mean? Still, for Valhalla, the opinion of the common people who were born in Valhalla was that they should be the ones to get nurtured into talented people rather than the ones outside. Conservative forces that pursued their existence and progressive forces that wanted to change, that was the reality of Valhalla. At the sight of Paulo walking forward with a changed attitude, Roman Dmitri didn't say anything. To end a grudge with victory and defeat, that was also the method of the demonic sect that Roman Dmitri was familiar with. Baron Paulo was a man of many words and actions. He guided them to a lodging that was 100 times better than the last one, where Roman ordered his men to rest. In the large room, Roman Dmitri sat on the sofa and carefully organized his thoughts about the Valhalla Empire. Valhalla, unlike Kronos, is a fairly fighting nation. While Kronos spoke of its ambition to conquer the nation, Valhalla seemed to be satisfied with the present state of the warriors forming its core. The problem is that the outside and the inside of the empire are different. Valhalla has similar ambitions to Kronos. In the past, Valhalla's actions had made it clear. While they always seemed to be criticizing Kronos, they never once thought about stopping the wars that were happening all over the continent. They also hoped that other nations, except for Valhalla, would just crumble. Actually, Valhalla's ambition was obvious. Some people fantasized about the title of the nation's warriors, but the so-called savages of the South would need brains to defy the conspiracies before they could form an empire. In fact, Valhalla seemed to be good at conspiracies. That was why they planted their own minion named Count Denver inside Cairo. Although they weren't making any active moves toward conquering the continent, they were always looking for opportunities. And with just one look, Roman could tell. To avenge Count Denver, they chose a very clever way to invite him to a fight instead of assassinating him. Valhalla chose a way to rile me up before going onto the stage. If I defeat Barbassa, will the outcome be accepted? Maybe the conservative forces, but the progressive forces leading Valhalla might not. In the end, whatever the outcome, moving inside Valhalla is bound to be risky. The moment he set foot in Paulo, he was closer to danger. This was a place of death, and from now on, anything could happen. For the empires, those with power didn't need any excuses. Even if people criticized them for harming Roman Dmitri, it would fade over time. Just like in my previous life. The life of the weak. He was used to it. The man named Baek Jung-hyuk took a risk in an environment worse than now to gain power. So it didn't matter what Valhalla meant. The more they responded, the finale, which brought the end, would inevitably shine more brightly. On the next day, Baron Paulo sent someone. "I am Sanchez. I will guide you to the capital." It was a man in his mid-30s. With suntanned skin and his hair tied back, he told them that they had to move to a nearby city with a warp gate. All the members of Roman's party were prepared, and they followed Sanchez to Paulo. Soon, the atmosphere of a natural conversation began on the boring path. "I have heard rumors about Mr. Roman Dmitri. It is said that when you defeated Butler, the Ranker, you were just in your mid-20s, and when you defeated Count Nicholas, the entirety of Cairo turned into a mess as you went up in order starting from the 100th rank." I felt so much admiration when such a story came up. Even though I was born in Valhalla, it feels like you are a warrior from Valhalla's history. He was a talkative man. He showed respect at first, but as the travel time got longer, he began to touch on sensitive topics. "But is it true that you defeated Knight Gustavo alone?" I am asking this since rumors are always exaggerated, so I don't really believe what people say. And the man we are talking about is Knight Gustavo. In a situation where the soldiers of the Kronos Empire were swarming, would it make sense for you to be able to cut through the crowd and kill one knight? Well, in the absurd stories and history books, a single swordsman splits the ground and cuts down the sky, but isn't Roman Dmitri human? He was speaking in an odd manner, as if in a roundabout way. At the remarks that continued to come, Chris's expression began to change. "Be careful with your words. It is fine." "Did you say it was Sanchez? It looks like you have something to say, so get straight to the point." At Roman's words, Chris suppressed his anger. In the nation of Valhalla, from start to finish, no courtesy towards their guests could be found. Sanchez grinned. In the first place, Roman Dimitri's guide was brought by someone else, but he inevitably decided to act on his own. I will be honest with you while talking. Roman Dmitri. What qualifications do you have to be chosen as the opponent of Mr. Barbassa? From his words, the aggressive attitude of Valhalla, which was only heard in stories, was seen. Sanchez, he was a disciple of Morales, the number 12 rank holder in Valhalla. Morales and Barbassa, they were famous for their bad relationship. Born in the same region, they had been competing since childhood, but Morales was always left behind by Barbassa's talent. Morales wasn't lacking in skills. He was someone born with talent worthy of being called a genius in Valhalla, but Barbassa's talent was unrivaled. Half a year ago, Morales was singled out as a warrior for the festival. The festival honoring the souls of warriors. There was a saying that those who died there went to Valhalla regardless of victory or defeat, so Morales said that he would stand on the stage with joy. Besides, when he heard that the opponent was Barbassa, he sincerely thought that the god of warriors had created a perfect stage for him. If Barbassa were defeated, it would be a chance to end their bad relationship. But even if he died, there was nothing bad about dying for Valhalla. However, the arrival of Roman Dmitri upset everything. Morales strongly protested against Valhalla's decision, but there was no way to reverse the decision already made. Sanchez said, "Roman Dmitri, the chance you have stolen is the wish every warrior of Valhalla wants. So what qualifications do you have to go on stage? The leaders of Valhalla say that you are the right person because of your reputation on the continent, but I do not believe the rumors. Isn't it too absurd? Even Morales, whom I serve, didn't reach that level in his mid-20s. The continent's first sword is the same. You are not. Validated and snatched the position we all hoped for. Since being disqualified, Morales lived in pain. Looking at that scene, Sanchez developed ill feelings toward Roman Dmitri. You don't know the value of the position you have been given. There are many warriors in Valhalla who would give up their lives to stand on that stage. Please tell me. Do you think you are qualified to deal with Barbossa on behalf of Morales? If you die without being able to receive Barbossa's sword, what will you do to the broken hearts of the Valhalla warriors who were waiting for such a day? His words. They were the same as the Valhalla Empire. He had a firm belief that Barbossa wouldn't be defeated. Just as they spread rumors about Roman Dimitri, they devalued Roman Dimitri from beginning to end. At that moment, nay, Roman Dimitri grabbed the horse's reins and stopped. From start to end, he didn't like the attitude of the people in Valhalla. People who didn't talk about surrender and people who said that Valhalla was the best, such foolish things. Was it even the right thing to do? In the world of the strong that eats the weak, it was natural to admit defeat and bow their heads. If a sheep exposes its teeth to the teeth of a beast, people won't applaud it. However, the people of Valhalla took death so lightly to the point of stupidity. Valhalla, Roman didn't think such a place would exist, but out of their self-doubt, Roman asked, Sanchez, what is your basis for that judgment? In his past life, as he lived as the son of the heavenly demon, he didn't tolerate being ignored by people. If he allowed people to look down on him, in a wild world, that would be the end. Valhalla's attitude, the words of Sanchez, and the reaction of the people being disappointed with Roman Dimitri being chosen, they touched a spot. Sanchez said, no evidence is needed. The reputation you have speaks for it. Is that so? Then, in the situation that matched the picture he desired, Roman had the scariest smile. If you have doubts about me, let me show you that the results in Cairo and Valhalla aren't so different. There are a few days left for the festival. Tell the warriors of Valhalla, including Morales. If there is a warrior who wants to visit me before the festival, I will gladly deal with them. It would be good to challenge me yourself too. If you draw your sword, I will deal with you right here. Hearing those words, Sanchez's mind went blank.